Hi folks, Mike here, your host for the Security Silverback. In this episode, we're going to talk about something I like to call AI-assisted social engineering. What is AI-assisted social engineering, you ask? Good question, and we will get to it. But first, we'll look at what inspired this episode. Specifically, some recent reports of scammers using artificial intelligence to compromise Gmail accounts. The original blog post was from Sam Mitrovic, and I've included a link in the comments below, along with a Forbes article that amplified his post and expanded on the issue. At its core, this is threat actors using a combination of AI tools to craft legitimate-seeming emails and, more importantly, making legitimate-sounding voice calls in an attempt to compromise the user's account. In this case, there were a few things in play besides just the malicious use of AI. First, to help this land, the attacker is spoofing both the caller ID when they call the target and the from address in their emails. Neither of these things are especially hard to do, and there are a number of videos out there already that explain how to do it. I'm not going to talk about spoofing sources here, but I may do a future episode specifically on how to identify them yourself. For now, we're going to focus on the AI aspects of this attack and why it can be a challenge for normal people to deal with. So let's look at the attack. The goal for our threat actor is to compromise their target's Gmail credentials, and the attack scenario goes like this. They start with a password reset notification, and if the target doesn't approve of the reset, then they move to a phone call using a combination of scripting and a good AI voice. That's the AI assistance part, and to me, the most interesting aspect of the whole thing. In any case, the phone call is to convince the target to approve the account recover after they've rejected the initial request. With the attack detailed in the blog, Sam realized what was going on and rejected not only the initial request, but also recognized the AI call and hung up on it. The original blog post goes into depth and includes some screenshots of the emails he got from the attacker and some great deals on how he recognized what they were doing. Along with his own account, he included some links to a Reddit thread where other people talk about experiencing exactly the same thing themselves. So I'm actually not going to repeat all of that myself here. But I do want to highlight a couple of things from the blog. First, what the threat actors got right and what made it problematic. The caller seems like a legitimate person, professional, polite, courteous. The source phone number looked right, and the email looked legit. Fortunately though, there were a few issues that made it apparent something was amiss. He hadn't initiated the account recovery process himself, which is the first sign that something isn't right. Unless there's a business profile with the account, Google doesn't actually call regular users. The email included an address that wasn't associated with Google, again, a sign that something isn't right. Looking at it a little deeper, a few other things come up in this specific case, and would almost certainly come up in others. While the AI call claimed the account had been compromised for a week, there weren't actually any suspicious logins to the account. Looking at the email headers, it was obvious it had been spoofed. And searching on the source phone number brought up other people who'd received the same scam call. Realistically, these extra steps are probably more than a typical user knows how to do or a security practitioner is even going to bother doing. But the first 2 points are telling. If you didn't initiate the call and Google is apparently calling you about it, something is decidedly not kosher. To learn more about this specific incident, I encourage you to read Sam's blog and the Forbes article, which has less detail but talks about other similar attacks. So what makes AI-assisted social engineering such a threat? The simple fact is that not everyone has a good cyber sense when it comes to detecting scams and phishing in real time. Even seasoned professionals sometimes get caught, and that's what scammers are hoping for. The AI voiceovers take it up a couple of levels from the old calls we used to get from John from Microsoft, who is obviously not a native English speaker or named John, telling us that Microsoft detected a virus on our computer. Which computer? Your computer, of course. No, these appear to be a lot more sophisticated and dangerous. Which brings us to the pointing out that deepfakes have made the inevitable migration from political ads and porn to cyber attacks. Seriously, this incident points to something I have been talking about since all the hype over ChatGPT-3 being a huge boon for threat actors. At the time, the worry was that threat actors could use the AI to create malware for them, lowering the bar of entry to the point where script kiddies were now suddenly producing first-rate malware. That never happened. As I said at the time, the AI-generated code looked like something that could have come from a second semester coding class or an example from a forum and wasn't likely to work, let alone get past even the most basic of anti-malware defenses. What I was worried about then, and wrote about a lot, was AI being used for social engineering because it was a lot better at delivering credible prose than it was at delivering usable code. Unfortunately, that seemed to be exactly what happened. Only it's worse than I originally expected, as AI voice systems have become sophisticated enough to not only write convincingly, but to speak convincingly. Now we have to worry about scammers using artificial intelligence to convince us in real time to fall for their attacks. Lovely. So what's being done about this? Google has their own advice on how to stay safe from phishing scams, and it's pretty solid. I've included a link in the article below. Beyond that, Google has joined forces with the Global Anti-Scam Alliance and the DNS Research Federation to create the Global Signal Exchange. The idea is to create a global clearinghouse that can exchange intelligence on scams and fraud and help interrupt threats in real time. If this works as they hope, it'll be a huge help to keeping people safe from scams and fraud online without having to depend on the target being savvy enough to identify an attack themselves. And we all know how hard that can be. There's some irony here that we're seeing artificial intelligence being used by defenders to counter artificial intelligence being used by the attackers. Not that it's a surprise. We saw this coming years ago. In fact, it has been developing for years. Early machine learning and artificial intelligence efforts were focused on identifying malicious code based on millions of samples using various ML techniques. Some more successful than others, and in some cases it was just marketing hype. But attackers have been doing it themselves, using machine learning to iterate through versions of their malware looking for patterns that will get them past the defender's AI. Again, that's nothing new. What's changed is the social engineering side of it, which I was getting at earlier. People are historically the weak link. We're organic, we're trusting, we're flawed, we're human. At least most of us are human. So if you're one of the other 2.5 billion humans using Gmail, or any other email platform for that matter, stay on your toes. If something seems a little fishy, take a moment, think, and don't just react. Reach out to your friendly neighborhood cybersecurity tech, whether they're a silverback or not, and get their take. If you're a security practitioner, you know this. Just make sure you remember it and make sure the people you're trying to protect know it too. Users are the broadest and most vulnerable attack surface, but they're also the first line of defense. And as AI deepfakes become more sophisticated and prevalent, they're going to have to deal with more and more frequent and sophisticated attacks. Let us help them stay ahead of the game. That's it for now. Before you go, do me a solid and hit those like and subscribe buttons. And as always, until next time, stay safe.